Welcome back to All Outdoors Photography Podcast, where we share experiences out in the field and educate others through landscapes, wildlife, macro, and more, with photographers from all around the world.
In today's episode, we have Suzette Barstow on the show, a nature photographer from Alliance, Ohio. So, welcome, Suze. You and I have met, I think, it was on Instagram, I think, like 3 years ago or something. So, I'm not even sure if you remember, but why don't you start by telling us your origin story with that and how I guess you and I met.
Yeah. Thanks for having me, by the way. Probably 3 years ago, and probably about the time that I bought or was thinking about purchasing a camera. And then I started asking you questions, lots and lots of questions about, well, what does this do? Well, what does this do? What do you mean? What's the triangle? I don't understand shutter. I don't understand ISO. I don't understand. Ryan was like my go-to person besides, multiple thousands of hours of YouTube video watching. Ryan was my go-to person to help walk me through everything I didn't understand.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
That's awesome.
I think it's just one of those things of finding Ohio local photographers, and I think either one or the other, we found each other that way. And I just remember getting messages at random throughout the day for quite a long period of time. And you're just like, yeah, what's the exposure triangle? Can you teach me this? And I think back then you were even using only a phone. Was that correct?
I was my whole journey when I first started, I was just using my iPhone 10R, XR, whatever the kids call it these days. That's what I had on me. And I started by walking and hiking local trails. We had just moved to Alliance. I was curious about the area, even though I had grew up close by years ago when I was just a kid. So I was curious to get out and see what was out and about. So family, friends started saying, hey, check out this place. Hey, do you know about this lake that's down the street? And this is close to you. And so I started just walking and carrying my phone along with me, and started realizing that it was taking me an hour to go a mile because I was taking all of these photos. I was stopping every 4 feet because, oh, well, that bug looks cool, or that's a cool leaf, or that chipmunk stood there long enough. I need to get a picture of it. And then it just kind of spiraled from there. I wasn't sure I wanted to invest all of the money. The camera photography hobby is not a cheap one, especially nature photography, and you don't narrow it down to a specific part of nature. I like to do it all. If it crawls, if it walks, if it breathes, and landscapes, everything included. I like all of it. So you need a gazillion different lenses for that. That's expensive. And so I wasn't sure.
Yeah.
So I did some research, and I found a company that's located out of Seattle, Washington, called Moment. And they make glass for your phone. So basically, they build a case that you snap on your phone, and on the back you can twist and lock in their lenses. So I had a telephoto, I had a macro, and I had a wide angle, and then I just went crazy. I was chasing down snakes for photos. They weren't always as thrilled about it as I was. It got me over my fear of bees because I had to get so close for a macro shot. So yeah, that's the basics of it.
Yeah, that's super cool. I'm curious, do you have a background at all in research into wild animals or wild insects? Do you have any background in that?
No, I'm just a stay-at-home mom. No, I have no background in anything. When I was a kid, my dad used to drag us along. At the time it was dragging. Now I have a huge appreciation for it. But back then, he would take us through the woods for these nature lessons, and we would be quizzed on trees and plants and, what kind of tree is this? And I don't care that it doesn't have leaves on it. You should be able to tell me by the kind of bark and the texture and the color. And then, we always came home like exhausted and going, oh, yay, can we please do that again? But so I've always had like this fascination with nature. I love animals. I've always loved animals. I tried, my brother and I, we lived in the country for a while when we were younger, and we're riding our bikes down country road, and we see this turtle, and it's huge. We're like, oh, this is so cool. So we go home, and we're like, hey, Mom. And she's like trying to hand us like this little sandwich, lunch paper bag. We're like, no, Mom, that's not going to work. We need something bigger. So she hands us like a grocery paper bag. We go back and we're like, well, this isn't going to work because it keeps like, it won't stick its head in. It's not scared of us, and it keeps grabbing at this bag. We bring this like shredded bag back to my mom, and we're like, no, Mom, we need something else. And she's like, oh, for gosh sakes, you guys, leave it alone. She's like, it's a snapping turtle. And I was always doing stuff like this to my poor mother. I would find baby raccoons. I would bring them home, and I would sit with them on my lap and just cry because she wouldn't let me keep it. And she'd make me walk it back to the woods and leave it there. She's like, you're lucky you're not going to get rabies, that it didn't bite you. You don't know if it's sick. Quit bringing things home. So I was always like that. Loved cats, dogs, you name it. I wanted a pet. We always had pets growing up. Anything from like an iguana to birds to fish to... I think my poor dad just went crazy after all the animals that we collected through the years. So yeah, I always had a fascination. I wanted to actually at one point go to school to become a marine biologist. I have a huge fascination with ocean wildlife, and then I discovered that chemistry was a huge part of that, and chemistry is not my strong suit. Like that's not for me. So we decided not to forgo that.
Yeah, I don't blame you. That's daunting.
Other than that, yeah, nothing professional. Just just simple fascination with the things around me.
Sorry, I was just gonna ask you if that was there a period of time maybe in between your childhood and when you took up photography that you kind of lost that love, or did it always stay consistent?
No, a typical teenager, friends, things were more important. Hanging out with friends, going out after work, dating, the social life. That was nature. For what's that? That's not cool. Who's hanging out in nature? I think the closest thing to nature was a friend of mine went to a park once and had a grill out with a few people or whatever, and that was as close to nature as it got.
Mm-hmm.
And then so I meet my husband, we get married, we have our son. I still have this love of the beach, and I still love animals. I like to collect cats and dogs. I'm not crazy cat lady or anything, but my husband and I, we've always had pets. And after we moved to Alliance, I just was like, there's something missing. I don't like the way that my life personally, where it's headed. I don't I feel stuck. I feel like I'm just in a rut, and I need to change this. I need to do something different. I need to get a healthier outlook on everything. And that's what the whole starting to hike thing happened. And because I started hiking, then I fell in love with nature and discovered it in a whole new light as an adult for the first time. The things that Dad taught coming back to me, but then taking those things and then running with it and going, okay, so now I want to, every bug I see, every creature I see, every plant, I want to know what it is. I want to know can I eat it or should I not eat it? Not that I'm going around through the woods snacking on everything during a hike.
I could get you in some trouble.
I'm not just like, oh, let's try this today. No. But I'm just super curious about this whole world that is around us. And then the wildlife started to come into play when I got my camera. Because before that, with a phone, no doubt you can take amazing photos with a phone. No question about it. I've printed out my phone photos to 8x10s, and they're beautiful photos.
Yeah.
But wildlife is tricky because you can't get those more intimate, up close and personal. You can't catch their personality the way that you can with a Nikon or a Canon or Sony, except for snakes. And so I used to spend a lot of time at the bog in Kent, Ohio. It's like a half-mile boardwalk trail, and on nice, warm, sunny mornings, easily there's 35 to 40 like water snakes, garter snakes, just hanging out all over the place. And so they make for great subjects. So I started taking a lot of snake pictures and learning about snakes. But then I got my camera, and then a whole other world opened up. Now it's everything. It's every bird I can find or hunt down. The deer. I have a list of special creatures I'd like to find, and the top of that list, which actually started the list, was river otters. And I spotted them one morning. I was out on a weekend morning. I think it's been 2 years ago now. And I watched 6 of them cross the road in front of me. And I was still practicing camera settings at that point. I still wasn't shooting full, manual mode. And so my settings were all messed up. They were all wrong. And it didn't matter. So I got all these little blurry shots of river otters, but it just made my day. And after that, I compiled a list. And so I've been able to knock a few things off of it since. So basically what's left is a bobcat, a black bear, which are both not typical, things that you see in northeastern Ohio. A mink. I still not have seen a mink. I did happen to see a weasel at Stark Park's office a few weeks ago, and that was the first time I saw one of those. And I saw a coyote over the winter on the frozen lake hunting the shoreline. So I have those fun little things that, it's like a little treasure hunt. Like, I don't expect to see them, but when I do, it's really fun and exciting.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it kind of makes things exciting too. You have like a little checklist, and it's like a goal to reach, really. Like take photos of this, experiencing this kind of wildlife. Like I feel like that makes it really exciting too.
Yeah, it definitely does.
Mm-hmm.
It's like playing Pokemon Go, right? With nature.
Yeah,
it really is though. Yeah, it's kind of like if you ever heard like the term gamifying, like just kind of making a little game out of it almost too. Just like what can I find today? I guess out in nature.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. So I gotta ask, would you ever go full time, or do you like to kind of keep it just at a hobbyist level?
Well, I dipped my toes in a little bit with trying a print on demand website type thing. I've decided for the time being it's not personable enough. So it's not the road I want to travel right now. Maybe eventually I will do something more on the lines of professional, creating my own website in the future. Right now, I've kind of taken a step back from that and just back to enjoying the hobby side. But if somebody approaches me and says, I do have business cards that I hand out to strangers around town when I get into conversations, and it has my Instagram on it. It has an email address on it. And so I do put myself out there and say, hey, follow me on Instagram. If you have an Instagram, if you don't have Instagram, you can still look at Instagram without an account. You just can't see everything. But you can see, my photos if there's something that you're interested in, if I can print that, if it's available to print, because sometimes I'm still working through the technical side of editing and learning those things when it comes to printing. Questions for the future, Ryan, by the way.
I'm all ears, yeah.
But I'll do that. I'm happy to sell something to somebody, print out a 5x7 and 8x10. I sign it. I'm happy to do that. I have had some stuff printed out for my parents. My dad belongs to the Ohio Forestry Association, and they do a charity auction every year that helps kids go to forestry camp every year, and they learn all about nature and trees and plants and all that stuff. And so I've donated or helped, to get prints. Dad has paid for prints to be donated for the auction. So I've dabbled here and there, but nothing super serious. It's hard to market nature photography. It's probably, I would say, nature photography, landscapes, birds, animals, even macro is a hard sell compared to, portraits. Well, everybody wants, except for me, but everybody wants their photo taken. Somebody will pay for somebody to take your picture, but they don't want a picture that you stood in the rain for 2 hours to get a picture of some rare seagull. They don't care.
Right.
Yeah, I think a lot of the print buyers with birds is only birders themselves. So
Yes.
Right.
You're definitely right.
Not everyone's gonna appreciate
challenging.
a warbler. Most people like the more common species in my experience in regards to print sales. They like the cardinals, the robins, just stuff that's much more a backyard kind of bird. They're not gonna really appreciate something that's not a bald eagle per se.
Right. Yeah, exactly. And I had somebody approach me about squirrels not too long ago, and I was like, well, yeah, sure. She's like, my husband absolutely loves squirrels. And I'm like, well, sure. I have a gazillion of them in my backyard. I would be happy to take some photos of squirrels for you.
It's a commission in a way, yeah.
Right.
Yeah. I don't ask that question to project, of course, because it's perfectly fine to be a hobbyist. I feel like it's such a bad rap, but it's just interesting to see people's motives and maybe if they want to pursue it. But it's really it's fine either way, of course. But it is a really hard sell, like you said, for sure.
The print on demand. So I used Fine Arts America. It's obviously not a plug or anything, but because I'm not on it anymore. I learned things about websites and the business side of things through doing that, and realizing, okay, it took me out of my comfort zone, which was a good thing. I'm always willing to have things push me out of my comfort zone. But I also learned that maybe it pushed me out a little too far, because it started to become about what people wanted. I started hearing oh, you have a website. Oh, you sell photos now? Well, I would don't you do this? Don't you do this? I would like this instead. Nobody wants a picture of that bird, but can you do butterflies, or you need to do more landscapes? And it started to become about everyone else, when the whole reason my journey started with photography was all about me, finding me, my inner peace, feeding my soul, whatever you want to call it. It was about me being in nature and relaxing and just enjoying the peace and quiet. And it was starting to get a little too noisy for me. So that's kind of why, me personally, why I stepped back. Who knows what'll happen in the future? And no judgment for those who do pursue it professionally, and no judgment to those who continue, that are amazing photographers that just continue to say it's just a hobby.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, definitely. Mm-hmm. Yeah, it is a lot of noise hearing the feedback. Whether it's solicited or not, good or bad, it's just like it does kind of become an influence, I guess, or even a distraction too.
Sure.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, definitely.
Yeah, so kind of switching gears here a bit. You seem to stay local for like a lot of your hikes. So do you believe that this helps you with your photography? Would you say the benefits are?
Yes. So, well, there's pros and cons to staying local versus traveling out and about. The pros for me are I get to know the wildlife really well. So I have basically 3 lakes that I jump between. They're within a 10-minute drive of my house. So I start basically on one end. I start at Wellborn and I hit my favorite spots. And then I drive, basically it's a straight road that takes me over to Deer Creek. And at Deer Creek, I hit, it's a pretty like long lake. So there's not a lot of like access points on that lake. So it's a pretty easy like look and hit kind of situation. There is a trail. It's part of the Mahoning Valley Trail, I believe, out there. And you can get out, you can walk. There is, quite a bit of walking you can do. And then there's the mudflat area of Berlin Lake. And Berlin Lake is a huge area of water, but it's got a lot of like bends and like outer banks and parts to it. Because I believe the Mahoning River runs in it, through it. I'm not real good with geography stuff. So I hit those 3 lakes, and I hit them not right now because gas is kind of expensive. But usually I drop kiddo off at school at 7:30 in the morning, and I take off and I go to Wellborn. And doing this almost every day, weekly, you learn, well, this time of year, this is what you're probably going to see. Of course, there's always this fun little Easter eggs like the coyote or the river otters or whatever. I know where the best places are to see the blue herons, or where to find egrets, or the bald eagles. And Wellborn, Stark Parks loves their eagle nest. They have a observatory set up for it, but the nesting site is actually not the best place to ever see eagles when you're out at Wellborn. But I know that because I spend a ton of time out there. And the same thing goes on with Deer Creek, and where you can find different kinds of, cormorants and gulls and other kinds of waterfowl out there. Then you go to the mudflats and you can find all the small things like killdeer and sandpipers and all that fun stuff. My favorite spot in the mudflats to find the kingfisher. And so if I'm looking for something particular, or I want to spend time with a certain type of nature or wildlife, I know which spot. Like, I'll just take my chair with me and go sit with my tripod and my camera and just see what I see in one spot. Or if it's like there's a lot going on that day, I may hop. And, it takes me a few hours, but I hit all the places.
Mm-hmm.
So, go ahead.
I was going to ask, how long did it take you to really, because it sounds like you have such a great grasp of those locations. Like, how long did it take you to really, like, realize all these different ecosystems and habitats, like, where you may see, like, a particular bird species or whatever?
It probably took a little bit. It wasn't just like, it probably took a year of spending time out there and just, I've had people say like, oh, well, how do you find all it. I'm not. They're not on my time. I'm on their time. So, it's just getting out there and not expecting anything, but really being open and paying attention, because a lot of people go out and they're like, checklist, blue heron for the day, see you later, and then they're off and running, but you didn't see the snake in the grass, or you didn't see this cool little bug on this flower, or you have to look at everything and pay attention to everything, and then just make notes of it, and eventually it just becomes like muscle memory. And then when I'm out somewhere at a certain time of year, when like migration's coming through in the early spring and in the fall, you notice something that's not usually there. Like, oh, that color isn't usually, what is that? You're able to spot the differences easier, to see new species and different things that, aren't always around.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, especially
that's super cool.
Going with like different seasons and everything. No, it's okay. But yeah, just seeing like going the same places and seeing through the seasons is super important. Like, especially with you said with like migration, it's like you get to see those patterns and just all the animals moving, everything that just really helps you, I guess, familiarize yourself, and probably I imagine take better photos with it too.
Right. Yeah, I feel that it helps because you can take your time. You can also, like, if something like, oh, okay, well, egrets aren't here yet, so let's just forego like maybe these 3 places and let's go try to look for something else. Or the one thing I don't ever look for, because when I look for it, I never ever see it, is bald eagles. So I've learned that we do not expect to see bald eagles ever. I never go out and plan for it, because when I don't plan for it, I will see 5 or 6 in one location, or I will see 5 or 6 the whole morning out. So that's always something fun.
I think sometimes too, with those bigger birds, they'll be way up in the trees, and you may be able to see them, but it's hard to get good photographs of them. You really have to hope for those spontaneous moments. So I think that's a good plan for them. Yeah.
Eagles and ospreys, it's a lot of sitting and waiting, basically. If you know that if you do spot them, you're right. They're up, sitting high, perched in a dead tree somewhere. And so you're just sitting and you're waiting them out, and you're going, are you hungry yet? I know you're here to eat. So are you ready to go? Are you hungry? And so you because you sit and watch them for so long, well, then you start to pick up on little things of like, well, they went to the bathroom, they're probably going to fly soon, or they're getting really restless, so you better, stand up out of your chair or whatever and start paying attention, because they're going to fly. And those bigger birds, those are kind of the shots. I mean, any shot of a bald eagle is a great shot, but when they're, half a lake across, sitting up in a tree, it's not a decent shot to take when you can wait and hopefully they'll fly right over your head. So.
Yeah, the second you look down at your phone too, they end up flying, or at least for me.
And you don't see where they go. Yeah.
It always happens. It never fails, every single time. And for me, one of the places that I like to watch for birds like eagles and osprey, it's actually on a road, and it's a country road, but it's 35 miles an hour, and there's your guardrail on both sides because there's water on both sides. And so I just park on the side, and nobody's ever, yelled at me. Yes, I'm the crazy lady that stands on the side of the road. I've been on like really cold mornings where I've just stayed in my car, and I'll go to shoot, and then I'll be shooting as a car's coming down the road, and I'm like, crap, no, not now. Why are you coming now? Like, you're going to drive in front of my shot. It's flying. Don't you understand that eagle is flying in the air right now? That is why I'm here. Don't you
You
care
need to make a
to?
sign or something.
Yeah.
I know.
We'll stop for birds. Make
I
sure
mean, I
that
do
stops.
find that out of all the birds, the normal don't even care about nature people, they'll be like, "Did you see the eagles? Did you see the eagles?" So
Oh yeah,
a sign might actually work in that case.
never fails.
Right, you're right. It might work because that's what I get on the side when I'm on the side of the road like that. Those are the questions I am asked the most frequent is, "Did you see an eagle today?" Nope. Sorry, I haven't. I've been all over. Like this is my last stop at Wellborn. I've been all over Wellborn this morning, and I haven't seen any. But I actually met a guy. I was over in one part of Wellborn. There's like a trailhead there, and I come out and there's like a picnic table. It's a nice quiet little area, and there's a guy standing down there on the phone, and he gets off the phone and he starts talking to me and like, "Oh, you have it's cameras are always a great conversation starter because anybody sees you with a camera with a long lens, they're like, whoa, do you work for National Geographic?" And I'm like, "No." I don't, thanks. Um, but he started a conversation about the Eagles, and I said, "Oh, you've never seen them here?" He's like, "Oh, I spend tons of time here, and I've never seen an eagle at Wellborn." And I was like, "Wow." And he laughed, and I was thinking, if he spends a lot, I spend a lot of time. Like, how much time do I spend out here that I see all these eagles? If you say you spend a lot of time here, and not 5 minutes after he left, an adult eagle flew right overhead, and I couldn't help but just start laughing hysterically out loud to myself. If anybody was around, they're probably like, "Crazy woman with her camera," because I found it so funny. Like, had you just waited 5 minutes, you would have seen one.
Right. Some people I don't even think know where to look for a bird. Like, quite frankly, like they're like, they might not see a nest, or them perched up high in a tree too. Yeah, and it gets even worse when people ask you that if like you're near a nesting area. Like, here in Dayton, Ohio, we have Carolina Historical Park has some nesting eagles all year round. So people are always, if you drive right by there with a telephoto lens, people are going to ask you if you've seen them because it's just kind of like a given, I guess, for the area.
Yeah. Same
Well, I think
happens at
that's
Wellborn.
great. Yeah, like you're definitely. I think patience is definitely one of your strong suits. Like more than me, like I don't have the patience to sit somewhere for a long period of time. I have to at least be moving around in the area. So I think that's great, and it sounds like it yields to a lot of shots. So
Yeah, I don't know, and I don't have a lot of patience. Ask my husband or my son, or my parents. So I don't know where it comes from. I don't know what it is about nature that makes it different. That makes it that I can just sit and be in it, and that's enough for me. And it's weird because nothing else in my life do I have that patience with that I have with nature.
yeah,
Getting back to your point of versus traveling, I do travel sometimes. I like to keep a radius of like an hour to an hour and a half circle from my house, and it cannot include major highways. I don't do 4-lane, 90-mile an hour zipping traffic. It makes me crazy. My husband works in Cleveland, and he's like, he could drive like 480 and 90 and the turnpike and like with his eyes closed, and it doesn't bother him one bit. Me, I get up there with him and I'm like a nervous wreck, let alone trying to drive it on my own. Um, so I do occasionally branch out, and my favorites are like Headlands Beach State Park. Highly recommend to anybody that wants to go, up to Lake Erie. It's big, it's quiet, lots of driftwood. There's a nice lighthouse, a different type of scene than what I'm used to. So you get like different wildlife and different the wildlife behaves differently up at the lake than, or Lake Erie, which is more like an ocean compared to little Walborn Reservoir. um I also like Nelson's Ledges, which is just full of glacier rock deposits and caves, and that's a lot of fun. So I love those experiences, but they're an hour and a half away, so I can't get the same quality experience, even though I enjoy them a lot and I love it every time I go. And I always see something different and discover something that I've not seen before. I don't get that same um, more honed in experience that I do with staying more local around what's right around me.
Mhm. Yeah, and it's
Yeah,
like
it's awesome.
yeah, it's like going abroad's like great, but yeah, it's like we said, with being familiar with the locations helps you get those better photographs and just tell other people about them. But it's nice to get out your comfort zone and go to new locations too.
Yeah. Yeah, well, it was like I took a trip, another local photographer, and he's like, "Hey, you want to go to New Humberstown to the Eagle's Nest?" I'm like, "Sure. If you're driving, great." Um so we went down there, and I have seen, I've seen a few eagles' nests. I've seen a handful. That has got to be the best viewing nest in Ohio, hands down, without a doubt. You are eye level with it. It was just the most amazing thing ever. So I really cherish that experience. But um, and I, after being there, I was like, "Oh, I gotta go again." But once I got home, then it wears off, and I'm like, "Oh, I don't want to drive down there by myself."
Yeah, so I mean, I totally see what you mean. Those more far away locations, you don't have the same level of research. I think that really knowing your area can really help. So I could definitely see your point there.
Mhm. Yeah, what have been some like really memorable stories from out in the field? Like, what are your like favorite moments, I guess, out there in nature?
Early mornings. I love early mornings. If I can be out before the sun rises, those are my favorite times to go out and be in nature. Everything is, in the summer, the dew, that's everything's wet. Everything smells fresh and ready for the day and to watch the sunrise. Um, it's quiet. All the day creatures are waking up, but you still get like all the nocturnal guys are still kind of out roaming around a little bit. The colors in the morning, I think, are just absolutely amazing. And so definitely in the mornings, those are very special to me. I have no problems getting up and leaving at 6:30 in the morning to be somewhere, or be up at 5 o'clock in the morning, whatever. That's easy. And then those encounters, those special like little moments that you don't ever expect, and they just happen. It's hard to explain. Like, um, like the cool things, like seeing the otters or the coyote, or those are all really special. But it's the everyday things I can enjoy, going and sitting with a bunch of Canadian geese and a bunch of mallards at the local park and have just as much fun and see just as much personality as if I'm out looking for whatever else that's not so typical. Um, like, I guess that's what's more special to me, is that I can enjoy the common birds and see something about them that maybe other people just pass by. I see people walk past me in the park and do circles around me as I take photos. And people are like, "Why do you go to the park to take pictures of geese or ducks?" And I'm like, "Because they're still wildlife. It's different, but yet it's not." Um, so yeah, just spending those intimate moments with an animal, learning them so that that they see you, and but that they're comfortable enough with whatever energy you're putting off to not just immediately like freak out and take off. Or just the other day, I've always wondered, in this drainage pond, is there fish in there? I have no idea. I've always wanted to know. And I'm looking for small birds, and I drive around because there's a nice big field where I am. And so I'm like looking, see what I can find, warbler season. Let's see how many different species I can find. And I come over to the pond, and there's a great blue heron in it. And so
Oh, wow.
I just sit and watch and wait. And at first it was almost going to fly. Like it had its wings sticking out a little bit and its head down like, oh, lady, I'm going to go. But because I didn't make any movements, I didn't make any sounds or anything, it calmed down and relaxed, and it fished right there in front of me and caught a huge carp. And I was like, well, I guess there's fish in that pond. So it's just little things like that, I'll talk. Yes, I can admit to this. I talk to the animals. I will talk to them. I will say good morning to them. I will yell at them when they're being rude to their friends. But I think it's all part of the experience. I think that if I'm putting out that energy, I think in some way, shape, or form, they realize that. And it's, even though they're wild, and I know they're wild and they're not pets, and I would never, ever think of them that way. I totally have a respect for wildlife and nature. Sharing that wild moment together is something that's, is very
It's
special.
just another way of connecting.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And it's really
so
it's a healthy mindset too. I would say a good attitude to have when out there is like you're not discriminating against one bird or another just because it's common. Like it really is. But it really, it's like it's cool that you can you're not exhausted of like a photo opportunity or just even viewing that bird because it's just another Canada geese or another mallard. Like that's really good, I think. And it's like no matter how many hundreds of shots you may get of it, there's still something new to see about it. Whether it's behavior or like a photo composition, like there's a lot more to it than just it's just another mallard or geese.
Yeah, on another level, they make good practice. So I'm always learning. I am always practicing because when it comes to photography and cameras and how to use them, it's an ongoing process. There's so much to learn. I will never, ever learn all of it. Some of these things I see these guys talk about on YouTube, like Tony and Chelsea Northrup. I'm like, you guys, what? Seriously? You make my head hurt. Like I will never understand cameras to that level. But I find common things are easier to find. They're easier to be around, and they make for great camera practice on, there's no better place to go to learn how to work your camera for flying, high action, waterfowl photography than at the local pond park where it's mating season with a gazillion Canadian geese and a gazillion mallards hanging out on this pond going after each other. You get to see all these things that you may not see at a bigger lake because they're too far out or there's not enough of them together to see the chase and how the ducks will like dip down and then the mallards will come up. They'll like raise up and they make like the weirdest sound. I don't know how to explain it. And they only seem to do it during mating season, and they do it when other males are around. And I don't know that I would ever see that if I was out, somewhere else. But because I'm at the park and they're like 50 feet from me, I get to see all that, and I get to practice capturing all of that, doing composition, making sure that my shutter speed is fast enough that it is working, that I have it working correctly with like my f-stop and my ISO, and making sure that the triangle is doing what it's supposed to be doing. That I am understanding what I'm supposed to be understanding. Yeah, so lots of good stuff.
Yeah, I think even with common species, I think, just normal people, walking by the side of a pond or something, they'll never see the feathers of a mallard. You know how they're kind of sharp, and I'm talking about on those tan areas,
Yeah.
and they kind of
And their iridescent.
yeah,
ones
they'll
too.
never see that. So like you're highlight, yeah, of course, yeah, you're highlighting that, and I'm sure by now you have a stunning portfolio of mallard images too. So
Yeah, I try not to. I can go to the park and take a gazillion pictures and end up with, I still haven't learned. Like I've heard 100 times from other like professional photographers, like you want to start limiting how many shots you take. Don't I can go out and in 2 hours take 800 to 1,000 shots, like easy. Like I figure, well, more the better, so that I can compare them and see what I am doing wrong. So I got lost. I lost my train of thought. Sorry.
well, you're talking about kind of taking a lot of shots of the same scene, just 800 to 1,000.
Yeah. So I will do that, but then that helps me with editing. It helps me with learning all of those different things.
Yeah, for sure. And I think, kind of a thing with even the professionals, I think they really are taking a lot of shots, and they delete a bunch and they just don't talk about it. Like,
Right.
when you're capturing those little moments, I mean, you got to take a bunch of them. And like you said, find the best one. So I think some of them might just be a little bit, pretentious sometimes, which can happen,
Right.
But,
Sure.
It depends on the approach too, or even like the subject matter, I guess, because like I'd imagine most people for landscapes don't take probably quite as many, but like wildlife, if it's birds in flight, you will be taking probably thousands of images on burst mode to get that right kind of sharp tack and focus shot.
Sure. And I find that I take more if it's something that I've never seen before.
Mm-hmm.
So like or something that I don't typically see. And so I want to make sure that I get a photo that I can share. Because I want people, the reason I share my photos on Instagram or Facebook, is I want to capture something that captures some personality or captures a story, or I hope that I have a story to go along with it. Because I know people like nature, but maybe they don't see it the way that I see it. Maybe it'll give an opportunity for somebody else to see something the way that I see it.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, I will take 1,000 shots of a ruby crowned kinglet with no issue whatsoever.
That's a good bird. So I mean, especially a fast one
Yeah.
like that too. You kind of have to take that many too.
Yeah, it does not sit still ever.
Never.
No.
Never. The
Yeah,
days.
the kinglets, I would say, are some of the hardest birds. I don't probably even in the world to photograph, because they're just always bouncing and size of like a coin. So
And they're always like in the shade of like a pine tree or somewhere like densely shaded. It's like there's no luck there really without using like a flash or something.
Yeah, I was watching one I was just fascinated that we had one in the backyard. It's the first time I've ever seen one in the backyard, and it's in the shade of, I didn't think that our maple trees had shade at this point, but I guess they do with this bird anyways. It found the shade, and I'm like, oh, come on, it's a sunny day. Can you pop out? Like, I'm waiting for you to pop out into a sunny spot. Just give me something that I can work with, please. Anything, like just 2 seconds. Just something, like, I don't know. I still haven't looked at those photos yet to see if I got a shot of it or not, or if it's all just, I love the pre-flight, the right when we fly off, and the after we've flown off shots where you pull them up to edit and you're like, there was something in this photo. I know I didn't just take this photo of nothing. There was. Or at the very, very tiny corner, you'll have like a wing. And I'm like, wow, that's a really nice, clean, clear shot of the tip of a wing. Fantastic.
Or the bud of the bird.
Or a really sharp branch. Too many times with that.
Yeah.
Like
always.
It was there, I promise. Yeah, and it's like just a sharp and focused tree branch, nothing else. It's like,
yeah.
That's when you edit it in. Do you ever like with in regards to editing your images? Do you ever like wait, kind of sit with it for a while before you really actually edit them, or do you like immediately do them the day of or anything like that?
Both. It depends. So, if it's something super exciting, like the eagle versus osprey above my head. I don't know if you guys have seen that post on my Instagram or not. It just happened the other day. I was out in the backyard. I was focused on a northern flicker, and I was waiting. It was down in the ground, like on the yard, hunting bugs. And I was like, oh, you're going to fly. I want to try to catch your wings. And so I'm waiting for that. And I hear this osprey. We have a cell tower a few houses down from us, and it's always had turkey vultures in it. And for some reason this year, a breeding pair of osprey won the tower this year. And so we have osprey just a few doors down from us, which I think is super cool. The male comes to our yard to rip sticks out of the tops of our trees for the nest. And excuse me. And so I'm sitting out there, and the osprey is just overhead, and it's just crying and crying. And I'm like, why? Like, I know that my blue jays and my crows and my hawks are not happy with their new neighbor. But I don't hear any of that. So I'm like, well, what is your problem? And I tip my head back, and I look straight up, and I see this huge bird. And it takes me a minute to register that is not a vulture, because it has a white tail. And I'm going, oh my God, that's a bald eagle. What? Holy cow. And out of nowhere, the osprey just like the wings are tucked, comes out of nowhere and just dives right at it. And I'm like, what? No. Oh, this is crazy. My settings aren't ready for this. Like, what? And I'm like holding my camera straight. I have a 150 to 600. I'm holding it straight up above my head, trying to get these shots of this like scene that is taking place, of like this battle. And all I can picture is that somebody's going to grab somebody and they're going to land in my backyard.
So this was like quite literally just in your backyard.
Yeah, in my backyard.
Wow.
And I've never seen an eagle fly over. I mean, we have a few nesting pairs. I know of two or three nests within a 10-minute drive from where I live. I mean, obviously flying distance, it's shorter, but I've never seen one, in our area before. And so I was shocked. And its tail feathers look to be still a little speckly. So I'm thinking that it still wasn't like a full grown adult, that it's one of the older offspring. And it's just looking or causing trouble, teenagers. So
I feel that.
Yeah. Right, yeah. Just looking for a fight. He's just this bully eagle just looking for a fight. And he's in, the osprey's nesting territory, and osprey just wasn't having it. And I was amazed. I'm just trying. So those shots, I like immediately okay, backyard birding is done. We're done. We're over. We're calling it quits. We got to go in. We got to put these up on the iPad. We got to get them loaded. We got to see if we can edit any of these or save. Do I have anything that I can even post? Because I mean, sometimes for me, it's not always about the quality of the photo. It's about the feeling and the story that goes along with it. So as long as you can tell that that's an eagle and that's an osprey, I'm going to post it because I don't care. Because it's more important for me to share like this awesome experience I just had. So those photos I ran in, and within, I try not to spend too much time editing, because the more I stare at a photo, the more I think it needs extra work. And then if I come back to it later, I'm like, what was I thinking? Whew, this photo is edited all wrong.
Yeah.
So I edited those quick, throw them up. But a lot of times I get, I'll go birding, or I'll go, just out wildlife, macro photography, whatever. This now the season for, bugs and stuff. I have to sit on it for a little bit, even if it's just a day or two, because it's too much. Like, you're just like, okay, I looked at them. Now I have to, because I have like because I only edit on my iPad, I only have so much space. And so you download a bunch of raw, 1,000 raw files from your camera onto an iPad. And so then my first process is to go through and pick out all the bad ones. And by the time I do that, I'm like, all right, we need a break, because I can't go through and edit anything, because you start staring at stuff for too long. And then you're just like, no, not feeling it now. I'm not giving the photo the time that it deserves in editing, I guess is how you could put it.
Yeah, I definitely agree with that, where it's like it does become, like, as they say, like overcook the image. Like you get more saturation. The more you look at it, the more it just kind of goes wrong in a sense. But it's just, quicker edits are almost best for, I say, most things at least.
Like when you get an image like onto your iPad and you've decided you want to edit it, like, will you do anything to that? Will you add like some contrast or saturation, or what's your process there?
Sure, I pull it. So for me, what my workflow is, I typically will just I will pull it into Lightroom, and from there I will, I will touch up little things, sharpness, or the contrast. Play with it a little bit. Sometimes, I may do a little like extra editing, maybe soften things up a little bit, because the photo isn't tack sharp to begin with. So I'd rather like encourage the mistake by, by smooth, trying to make it, because if you try to over sharpen, then if you try to correct the mistake you made, then a lot of times it becomes more obvious. Where instead I like to kind of like blend it in, decide that that's part of the creative element, and work with it instead of trying to work against it. Every once in a while I will have a stick, or I will have a leaf or something that is just like, no matter how I try to crop you out, you are still there, and you do not work with the scene of my photo. So I need you to go. So I will use, the healing tool, and I will remove it. If I can't remove it because I'm not super skilled in, cloning and healing and all of that, sometimes you can still tell that it's there even though you removed it. Then I'll go try to find another image, or I will try to work around it, or I just will give up on it and say, well, you're not the photo for me today. I typically don't do anything else, though. Occasionally I will get in these moods. I have a creative side that likes to come out and play sometimes. I don't take anything, I don't take it seriously or anything. I love to paint, I love to draw, I love to do all these things. I do them well, I don't know. But I like to do them because it's a creative outlet for me. It's another form of relaxation. So sometimes I like to mix those together. I like to take my photography and I like to distort it, I guess is a good term, in editing, to make it look like it's been painted.
Ah,
So that's a fun thing for me to do. It takes more time. Um, not every
y-
photo works for it or whatever, and it's definitely like a unique taste that not everybody loves or thinks that you should be doing with a nature photo. Um, but it's fun, and I that's what photography for me is supposed to be. It's the whole process from start to finish should always be fun. And so sometimes it helps me, like when I get stuck in editing, I'll just go throw it, in Procreate and throw some painted textures around it, blend it through, add some, I'm learning on how to use layers and stuff, and um, create this like painted looking photograph. But I don't do it very often.
I remember, yeah, for anyone that hasn't seen this, it's honestly really unique what you're doing with those. I remember like the first time you started posting those on Instagram, it was very like the shift towards doing those. You're posting for like a couple weeks, I think, of like all these
Yeah.
different birds and stuff, and it was just really like you said, kind of like when you get stuck in a rut. Like it was really refreshing to see this kind of like I don't want to say wall art, but it had this very artistic kind of. It lent itself more to that style, and it was really fun to see what you're like coming up with in the editing process.
Thanks, I appreciate that. I at least have one person that appreciates it. Woohoo!
Oh, I love them.
Um,
No,
no, I
yeah,
think it's great. When I checked out your portfolio, like that's some of my favorite stuff. Is that I mean, it's so unique. You're not following the trends, and you're doing what
yeah,
makes you happy with photography.
yeah.
So
yeah. I'm just doing my own, like putting my own spin on it, doing my own thing, and yeah, and it helps. It helps pull you out of that rut, or it helps. In nature photography, we have those moments in the season where things kind of die off and get quiet for a few weeks. And if I'm sitting around or I'm bored or I'm stressed or whatever, I'll just start pulling out photos, things that I've edited, and I'll just start throwing them through. Um, One of the apps that I use to help do that is called Distressed FX. And it adds like, it has all these like distressed things that you can add and layer through. And it was actually like through that app and through a few people that I follow on Instagram that kind of led me, that do it with landscapes, that led me like down that path of why can't I do it with birds or chipmunks or whatever. And so yeah, but there's more like, there's more creative process to it. And so yeah, that's, and I'm learning, I've learned different things with that, with like DPI and stuff, like sometimes those apps, and that's why I started learning Procreate, because the apps like send it down to like 72 and then you can't print it. So then I'm just doing it, I guess, for Instagram, but I like to do things that I can, even print for me personally. And so if I'm doing this like creative style that I love to do when I do it, well, I want to be able to like show it off in my home. But if I can't print it because it's pixelated when it prints, well, then that's, it's no good to me then.
yeah,
So
sure.
always learning.
Yeah, I think that's awesome. Yeah, I think that might be our episode title right there.
Always learning.
Always learning.
That's a
I
good
think
way to put
that'd
it.
be a good one. Yeah.
You just decided for
Uh-huh.
us. Yeah, that's great.
Hey, no
Yeah.
problem. Anytime, guys.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So as we wrap up the episode here, is there anything you're looking forward to shooting come here in spring or even summer?
No. More warblers. I'm loving this. It is. I'm playing Pokemon Go with
Yeah.
warblers. I'm collecting. I don't know why I've never seen them. This is my first year of identifying and seeing them. I don't know if it's because I've had my telephoto lens for a year and a half now, and so now it's birds, birds, birds. That's all I think about. I eat, sleep, dream, wake birds. Like, and the more birds I can find, like the cooler it is, the more I can watch. So warblers, that's my thing right now. I've seen 2 different species in my own backyard. I've found 3 total, and it's like, okay, how many more, can I hunt down? But I'm just looking forward to the summer birds. I love watching the great egrets. I enjoy the kingfishers in the summer. Um, we have them year round, but I never typically find them very much until summer. Um, the herons, I love spending time with the herons. Even though they're here in the winter, they're harder to find in the winter. And so I enjoy they're so peaceful. And so I enjoy, like, pulling out my camping chair, sitting down and hanging out with, having a morning with, some caffeine and, a few blue herons to watch. It's always a good day.
Good morning there, yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
Living the life, yeah.
I don't ask for much.
Yeah, yeah, you don't need much to be entertained. I agree. Well,
I wish there were more people like that in the world that just enjoyed nature versus all the distractions of life. So I think that's great.
Yes, I agree with you. I think it would be a calmer place, and always, people are like, I'm like, go to nature. Like, you just don't just go. You have to be in it. You have to be open.
Yep.
You have to be open to it. And
I think for some people that's not photography. Some people it's hiking. Some just using binoculars.
Experiencing it. Yeah.
Yep.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I've met so many cool people across the board. I've met, biologists from Michigan that we've had conversations on the side of the road. Like, I've had conversations with some of the coolest people, and it's all because of photography. Had it not been for photography, nature photography specifically, I wouldn't have ran into all these people. I wouldn't have had the conversations that I've had, learned the things that I've had, people give me tips. I've met tons of other, like, birders and people into wildlife that are, like-minded, and it's just been an amazing experience.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, photography kind of bridges the gap between, the connections. Even if you're out there in nature, it's like a solitary experience. It still kind of breaks down the barriers and, kind of connects us all.
Mm-hmm.
That's quite dramatic, but it's a great way to end the episode, I think. This has been a great conversation, Suze. So where can listeners go to see your Instagram and your Facebook?
Yeah, so my Instagram is the best place to go, and it's Suzette Barstow. So that you just search Suzette Barstow, it'll pull up my Instagram. It's public. You can absolutely follow. Give me a like, whatever. My Facebook is right now, until I figure it out. It's just, a typical normal Facebook profile. So right now it's private. So the best place right now would be Instagram. I still love Instagram over Facebook. I'm still not into this whole Facebook thing.
Yeah.
Everybody gets a lot. The community, I talk more to people on Instagram. I'm more into networking, social media, everything when it comes to Instagram. Facebook, I'm still hiding around, lurking. So.
Yep.
No worries.
I got banned off Facebook day one. I tried to join, so
Facebook
ever since
jail.
then I'm just like not even trying it. Yeah.
I got thrown in jail within the first 2 hours that I joined Facebook. Yes.
They just,
yep.
I feel like they assume everyone's a bot that signs up because you start liking all these pages and do all this stuff. And it's like too much activity, so they just lock you down.
Yeah, they're like, dude, you can't add. They're like, whoa, day one, she knows how to create an album and she's loading 400 photos into it. You can't do that. You must not be real.
Right.
Yeah. You're using too much of our data. Yeah.
Yeah, apparently so. I mean, same thing happened to me when I made my Facebook for my photography page. It did lock me out. And I was like, you can't get in. We don't want you to log in. Nothing. It's like ridiculous, but.
Oh, jeez.
It's weird like that. I don't know.
Yeah.
So I'm looking forward to seeing your Instagram stuff though. Some of your migration stuff and everything. That'll be awesome. So
yeah, definitely.
Perfect. Thank you.
Yeah. Thanks for coming on, Suze. This has been great.
No, thank you so much. This is awesome. I love it. It's
been really cool, like seeing your whole journey throughout the past couple of years. Starting with the phone and just taking those phone shots to like what you're doing now is just the evolution is really incredible. So, and you're a great personality too.
Oh, thank you so much. I really appreciate that. Oh, you guys are so kind. Thanks.
It's been great. Yeah, thank you.
Yeah, I really enjoyed this. Thank you so much.